Welcome to Ex Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Folks, and thank you for joining us on another edition of Ex Machina. We've got a special edition for you guys tonight because, well, I didn't expect to be presenting what we're going to be presenting tonight. Noah and I, a couple of days ago, we decided we were going to go back down to Joe Bald. And, well...
I got my directions mixed up, sorry.
I thought you were doing the YMCA down there or something. I don't know what the heck
you said Noah and I went and then pointed. I was trying to point at you, but I pointed at Robbie instead, and I was like, "Shit."
The other me. But we were planning on going down there yesterday, and Noah wasn't feeling well, and I'm kind of glad it worked out that way, because what we found today is pretty freaking mind blowing. We've talked about what we found in Combs Ferry. We've showed you guys the pictures of what we found in Combs Ferry. I honestly think what we found in Joe Bald today tops it. It may be some of the strangest stuff I've ever found. And Combs Ferry still ranks pretty high up there on my list of crazy experiences. But Joe Bald today did not disappoint. Before we get into it, somebody in a chat mentioned something about an incident that happened in Montana, about a guy that they're trying to say it was a black bear attack, but they were chop wounds. I'd like to know more about that. If you can email me or text me the information on that, I would definitely like to read more about that. Casey says Bigfoot was jealous of your sandals, Noah.
Dude, Casey keeps talking about my damn sandals. I'm thinking he's jealous of the dad sandals.
Ain't nothing wrong with those sandals.
Dude, I'm telling you, they're the comfiest shoes I have ever worn. They're so comfy. Like, oh, dude, they're hiking sandals. But, like, I don't hike because I'm fat. But, Lord, let me tell you, those things are comfy as hell. Oh, my God.
Well, there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about in Joe Bald. I want to talk about some of the first things we discovered before we get to the really interesting stuff.
Casey had a comment. Lene sniped it. But Casey just goes, "You got big ass feet."
He's got giant feet. Let's see. Northwoods, I don't know. She might have.
Oh,
just a guy. Let me change the text, and I'll put that up there so you can get my email address. Here we go. There's my email address right now. So, send me anything you want right there at DARoberts at DARoberts.net. Angel says Casey has no room to talk about anybody having big feet. He has 13 and a half.
Hey, listen, I wear an 11 and a half F-width shoe, so I mean, I may not have the longest feet, but I got some pancakes down there.
Well, the first thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to share the screen here so you guys can see these images. I don't like uploading them to Talk Studio because when I do that, it takes up the entire screen and you can't even see us anymore. So I'm going to be doing some slide style stuff. So first images I'm going to talk about. These right here that is the bridge, and right back here is the tree where we had the original incident. Okay. So when we first filmed that Joe Bald video where we had something peeking out from behind a tree, this is the area right here. And you can see that the little bridge is still intact. It's still got, it's still in good shape. The steel that's a heavy steel rail on both sides. You can see how thick it is. The welds are still holding strong. But I want to show you the other ones. So this one we talked about this before, but I want to show you the other one that's just a little ways down from it. And this one, I can't figure out how it was done, because I know Robbie was down there with us when we first noticed it, and well, we tried to move it and we couldn't. And neither Robbie or I are very small guys. We could not bend this, and this one is bent over like this. There's no way that was hit by a car, because you can see how deep that ditch is right there that goes over. How far over that is bent. And Robbie and I grabbed a hold of that thing and tried to shove it back upright, and it didn't budge. I mean, you could wiggle it, but you know, when you'd let go, it went right back to where it was. You could not bend that in any way. It was way too heavy for us to bend. Robbie, you remember when we were down there trying that?
Yep, I sure do. And when you say we could wiggle it, not very much.
Yeah, not much.
Like quarter of an inch, maybe. And both times we were down there, we both tried, because you weren't feeling too good the first time we tried to,
Right.
But you were feeling a lot better the second time. And the second time, we maybe moved it a quarter of an inch more than we did the first time.
If we're lucky.
Yeah.
3D Havoc said maybe Jorg kicked it over this big old feet. Y'all keep talking about my feet. We're going to Feet Finder after this. Y'all are going to start paying me to talk about my feet, damn it.
We don't want any feet pics, Noah. No, thank you.
Oh, man. Everybody's got some snarky comment about my feet.
Well, if y'all remember when we showed the pictures inside Combs Ferry, all of the picnic tables, everything had been destroyed. It was like a wrecking crew had gone through there. This is what it looks like inside Joe Bald. When I've told you guys that it looks like you could just go in there and clear out some of the brush and camp. I'm not kidding. You can see here, these are the whole picnic area is still there. There's even the lantern hook where you hang up your light. These were all primitive campsites. They're just heavily overgrown. It looks like you could go in there, clean it up some, and just camp again. But any attempt to do so is immediately shut down by the Army Corps of Engineers. They will not let this reopen. There's another campground on that side of the lake, a few miles down the lake, called Ants Creek, A-U-N-T, like aunt and uncle. Ants Creek is busy year round. I mean, even in the winter, you'll find people down there with RVs. So it's not like there's not a call for it. The campgrounds on that end of Table Rock Lake near Kimberling City are always in demand.
I just want to point out something kind of comical that just happened. Dad, congrats on your membership to your own channel.
How the hell did I become a member of my own channel?
Larry Sharp just gifted one, and then gifted another one to Misty Haynes.
Larry,
Larry, thank you.
But Noah, you need to figure out why it does that with me. I mean, I'm the channel owner, but it still does it.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's the second time it's done that. Sorry, Larry. And here's another one of the campsites.
I don't know, but it's just kind of funny.
As y'all can see, a lot of these campsites, well, heck, even with the brush, you could go in there and still camp. Noah and I were at one earlier today that they looked at somebody who probably had camped at recently. These are just just an example of the campground of these campsites in Joe Bald. Some of them have some damage to them, but we don't know. We don't know what.
Real quick, this stairwell here, it's just kind of there. It's kind of pointlessly there. The hill is not steep on either side of it. And
Yeah,
honestly,
I don't know why this staircase is here.
it takes less work to walk up the hill than it does to walk up the stairs.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why these stairs are even here.
And Casey asked if the roads are gated there. The roads were gated.
The gates are gone. I think somebody went in there and yanked them down. I think we got some pictures of the gates. Here's another one of the campgrounds where you could, it's not been, upkept and the grass isn't mowed or anything. And there's a lot of down branches if you wanted to build a fire. But some of these campsites this is just like how they are. I mean, other than it, them refusing to let people use it, most of these are still serviceable. This is something else we found. It was I don't know if you can see it on this, but it was kind of twisted into the sapling, which is weird. I'm not sure what kind of feather that is, but I kept it. So thought that was pretty cool. Now I'm getting close to some of the photos. I'm not quite ready to show yet.
That looked like a hawk feather, but maybe it was kind of hard to tell.
This is as good as ours, so.
Yeah, it's over here on my desk somewhere.
I'm not that deep into bird watching, so.
Where the heck I put the dang thing?
K Bauer said, at work, just stopping in to say hey and howdy. I'll have to catch up on the way home.
Okay.
Good to see you. Hope you're well.
Yeah. Looks like a hawk feather to me.
I mean, we have a lot of hawks around here, so I mean, wouldn't be surprising at all.
Cool. It's the reason I decided to keep it. But some of the other stuff we found, and there's an area we've talked about it on the show before, where Robbie and Noah and I found those tracks that we were going to cast, but then they were gone. When the next day when we came back with casting material, someone had driven over them. Well, this is the same area, and this is going to kind of show you an example of the wildlife that's down there. Robbie hasn't seen these pictures yet, but I bet you he can identify a lot of these prints. But there was one I couldn't identify.
So, Hillary in the chat said, DA, keep it and use it as a quill pen. I got him a quill pen for Christmas a couple years ago.
One. Robbie, can you tell what some of these tracks are?
I'll be honest with you. Looking at them it's hard for me to pick it out. Where the
I'm
track
pretty sure this one up here is a
okay.
raccoon track, and this one's a deer track.
Yeah, the first one you pointed at more than likely is a raccoon.
There's a bunch of little raccoon tracks up here.
Yeah, there's some deer tracks down there. I saw those, but like maybe there's a fox track right there. Could be a fox or coyote.
This is the one I wasn't sure about.
Which
it's only 3 toes. It has a big pad like a canine, but it's only got 3 toes. And it wasn't huge. It was probably the size of the palm of my hand. Maybe 3 inches across.
If that. I'd say it's just from the way that it stepped. I'd say it's probably just a dog print.
That doesn't look like a dog print to me, though.
What I thought too. It didn't look canine.
You know almost what that looks like. And there again, this is just me looking at it on a picture. I didn't see it in live. But what that looks like to me is like somebody's hand went down on their palm went down and their fingers dug into the mud.
Yeah, could have been.
But there's only. Well, maybe.
Like I'm saying, I'm not saying that's just what it. From what I can see on the picture, that's just what it looks like to me. Is like somebody's hand.
Could have been somebody slipped in the mud and landed like on the side of their hand.
I didn't see a whole lot of footprints down there.
We did see a couple though, because we saw that boot print.
Mm-hmm.
Because I put my print next to it because we thought that it might have been mine, but it was not.
Like I said, I'm not. That's where my mind goes when I first see that thing. Is just it looks like somebody's hand.
Right there, where what would have been a perfect track trap. the biggest track we found was that one. I don't know what it is, but I found, lots of what looked like raccoon or possum tracks and some deer tracks.
While we were on our way
Deer
past
tracks.
again later, we even saw more deer down there at that exact spot. I just couldn't get the camera up in time to get a picture of them before they bolted.
Yeah. As soon as we stopped, they were gone.
Yeah, I assume they thought we were getting ready to shoot one of them because they don't know that we can't shoot them from the car.
Or in that park.
There's a lot of deer around there for sure, though. I mean, we saw a lot of deer track when we were down there last time.
I tell you what, one thing we noticed when we were in there, tons, and I mean tons of acorns.
That's
That's part of the shoreline there at Joe Bald.
It's pretty coastline.
Hey,
that's a house across the bay.
Back it up, that picture, that shoreline, right quick. Let me see it again.
Down there at the end is where we saw that guy taking a dip.
Yep, that's what I was just about to say. So
yeah, he was over here somewhere.
Just to give everybody perspective, the first time we were down there, or that I was down there with them, where that track would probably been that track was down at the bottom where the shoreline and the lake meet, right around that area where DA's cursor is. That's where we found that first, somewhere in that area. I don't know how far back it would have been, but that was.
I think it was in the water because the lake was a lot lower.
Yeah, it was quite a bit lower.
In that general area is where we found it.
Yeah. There's another shot of the lake. And now we're back to that. Okay. Now, I'm not sure what I should jump into next. Because I'm dying to jump into the really interesting ones. And let's talk about let's talk about the where we found the junction box.
Oh yeah, the number 25 or the little one?
The first one.
Okay.
Number 25.
So the first time we went into the park with Robbie, we saw off the side of the road just a big ass junction box, right? Robbie and I didn't investigate it too much, but we did go up there and take a look at it, and like it's a big 3-phase power box. Like
all the campsites in this park were primitive campsites. There was no power to any of these campsites.
When Dad and I go up there to inspect it today, we discovered that it's 240/120.
Yeah,
is what I said it was. Yeah, 240/120. It's numbered number 25,
which means there's 24 more in that park somewhere. At least 24 more.
Either in the park or scattered around the lake. We couldn't find another numbered one, so we can't prove if they're scattered in the park or not. But
the second one we found when Robbie was with us, we couldn't find it again.
Yeah, we couldn't find the other one that we found before.
And I don't remember if that one having a number on it. Do you know?
Vaguely. I wasn't really looking for that when we looked last time.
There's the cables coming out of the ground. So this eliminates the possibility that this was just some meth head stole it for the copper and dumped it out here in the woods. It was actually wired into the ground.
And that's the same condition the one we found, Noah.
Well, that is the same one. That's the one we found.
Oh, I thought you said this was the one that y'all saw today.
No. This is the one me and you found.
Remember, Robbie, we found that second one from the car.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't find that one again.
Okay, so you found the one that we found that no one I walked up to.
Yeah.
You just said, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I misunderstood. Sorry.
We couldn't find the second one, but we did find a smaller one, which we'll show here in a little bit.
There's those wires that go straight into the ground.
But yeah, for those of you out there, like Wolfric here said, the cables have been cut with a knife. Like that's clear that they were cut.
They had to been cut with a cable cutter.
I'm about to say a knife didn't cut those.
Well, yeah, something bladed.
The wires in there were
those are straight cut. Those are straight cut, I think is the point.
Those were definitely
cable cutter had to do it. It wasn't a pocket knife.
But regardless, 240/120 is for like heavy appliances.
Yeah, what's this doing out in a campground with no electricity to any of the sites?
Like, it doesn't feel like it belongs there at all. And I even got a few pictures of like the label here, and they're high enough quality. You can zoom straight in on them.
In fact, I will do that.
Like if you kind of squint your eyes and cock your head a little bit, you can actually like read the pencil writing where it says, you know, spec on the left, pounds, etc. Like you can actually read where it was penciled in over there.
Looks like, is that? Oh, that's a serial number.
Mm-hmm.
There's no date that I can see.
That's what I was looking for. So what the date of last inspection or whatever was, that would have...
Yeah, we couldn't find an inspection sheet. That was something that I was looking for pretty much immediately. But it's just so bizarre, especially given where it's at in the park. It's not near any upland, like it's not near any like RV hookups or anything like that. It's just kind of out in the woods.
Yeah, it was more or less just out in the woods.
Yeah, Kevin asked a question, and I can't remember if we talked about this before. Were they ever, at any point before it closed, were they ever trying to upgrade some primitive to have power hookups that you remember?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, I camped there when I was a kid, and I don't even remember there being a bathroom in the park.
And I mean, that would be where your mind would go first. And well, maybe they were just doing that. But if they were doing that, it seems like they would have had some bathrooms and some more than just a little guard shack.
And here's the other one that we found. This one didn't have a number on it, but it's still intact. It was padlocked shut. In fact, if you look, you can see the padlock right there. That lock doesn't look very rusty. If that had been out there 20 years, it would be rusted over.
Yep.
That lock looks fairly new.
Miss Moon asked if it was sitting on a concrete pad. Are you talking the older one or the little one there?
Neither of them were on any kind of concrete.
Yeah. The one Noah and I found was kind of upended, laying on its...
Yeah, it was on its rear plate, yeah. But yeah, it being numbered number 25 is kind of weird. Because like I said, either that means that there are at least 24 more in the park or 24 more scattered around the lake. And regardless...
I tend to think that they're in the park because the picnic sites, the campsites, are all numbered.
Yeah.
So I would think that it was corresponds to other boxes in the park.
House, I'm sure we would get an honest answer if we asked a park ranger.
Yeah, you can trust me. I'm from the government.
I've never seen a park ranger at Joe Bald. I've seen I've seen Stone County deputies in the park, but I've never seen a park ranger down there.
But if they were, I'm sure we would get a very honest answer.
Oh yeah. They'd say, that's a good question. No comment.
Like, who does the 24-hour service truck work for?
Yeah, no kidding.
I keep seeing these 24-hour service vans down here. What company are those? Well, I don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, here's something bizarre that we found down there.
I do not recall, Senator.
My source is that I made it the up.
I Googled this after Noah and I found it, and the only article I could find was that this gentleman passed in a motorcycle accident on Joe Bald Road. But this is in the park. Nailed to a tree in Joe Bald.
And it is at a curve in the road, but it's not like a steep curve.
Nobody would be going that fast on those roads.
Wolfric, to your point, I showed the girl that works with me at the school I work at. Her husband is a lineman for Blue Ridge Electric. I showed him the pictures. He said, "Yeah, that's 3-phase." So,
which Dr. 45-120, I don't think they're repairing anything. And KC, no, we didn't see any trucks down there. We saw some people fishing, but they were not up in the park itself. They were down at the boat ramp, and we only saw one other guy that wasn't at the boat ramp, and he was sitting in a lawn chair right next to the water, and he was only there just a few minutes.
So we did have that white panel van there the last time we were there, though. It just didn't have 24-hour service on it.
Yeah, just an unmarked van. And a dude sitting in the driver's seat doing nothing.
Except blocking our signal. I mean, sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah. Well, most of the rest of the images are just, you know, like examples of the
picnic area.
Picnic area. Here's that gate.
Just the livability of the park.
I'll show this one. Yeah, this that one time it was gated off.
Several parts were.
Yeah, there were a couple of places that had gates like this, and they were in similar shape. Somebody had gone in and basically torn them off.
And judging from the bend towards the end there, I'd say somebody probably went around it, hooked up to it with like their tow hitch or something like that, and just yanked that sucker off. It doesn't seem like they just brought tools out there and took the thing apart, because it wouldn't be bent down there if they had.
There's a few of these, and at least a couple that we know of that we found so far. But there's some areas of Joe Bald I didn't go because I wasn't sure my little Rogue could get back out of it. But there's some places if we can get back down there with, say, Robbie's 4-wheel drive. I want to get in to those.
Well, the next time we'll take the bullet down there.
Now well, it's coming up on the bottom of the hour. Let's take a quick second and hear a word from good old Doc over at Scallywag. Not Doc, at Dark Angel Medical.
You changed jobs.
Then we're switching it up a little bit.
That's right. Then we're going to show you something that, well, I think it'll get your attention.
Hey, everybody. This is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with D.A. Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com, along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
And don't forget to use code Cryptid20 for 20% off your entire order. And tell Pocket Doctor we sent you.
You want to announce it, DA, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
Registered save number 199 this week. Almost 200 people have been saved thanks to Doc's training and his kits.
Hell yeah.
So, if you're friends with Doc on Facebook,
next day would be big 200. I'm sure Doc's going to do something to celebrate that.
If you're friends with Doc on Facebook or anything like that, send him a congratulations, or send it through us. We'll be glad to tell him. But 199 people are still walking around because of Doc.
Okay, folks, what I'm about to show you now is a video, and it's a couple minutes long. Noah, it's owned by the Army Corps of Engineers. Which most of the land around Table Rock Lake is controlled by Army Corps of Engineers. Most of the campgrounds were as well. So it's all through Army Corps of Engineers, and there has been several attempts by private investors in the Kimberling City area that wanted to reopen Joe Bald to give more camping, because that's a tourist destination. There's tourists there all the time because the Silver Dollar City is so close. Every time they've tried to get Army to petition the Army Corps of Engineers to let them reopen Joe Bald, it gets shut down. Even if the Army Corps of Engineers doesn't cost them a nickel, they still say no. They won't let them reopen that park. Same with Combs Ferry. Now, what I was saying about this video, I'm going to show you all this video, We'll let you guys watch it, and then we're going to discuss it. And I've got a bunch of pictures to go along with this video, and I want to bring these pictures up after you guys have had a chance to watch the video, and we'll zoom in on these to show you we're not just blowing smoke. This is bizarre, folks. I'm not gonna say with 100% certainty that this couldn't have been a poacher. But Robbie's a deer hunter. I'm a deer hunter, and I know there's some of y'all in the chat tonight that are deer hunters. Even if this was a poacher, this is weird. So with that in mind, folks, well, as a Cam over at Dixie Cryptids, y'all might want to hang on to your weave.
All right, everybody. So we're in Joe Bald right now. We decided to take a little look-see around. And as you can see, there is parts of a deer strewn about,
If you notice,
including broken bone.
this has not been cut off. This has been snapped off. And it's the same way on all of them. There's a huge chunk of bone there. All of the legs. This one's been disarticulated completely at the joint. This one's been snapped off. You can see where it's part of the sinew still attached. Hell, it's twisted. You can see where that's been twisted off. That was not cut. But the real kicker is the head. Head's missing the eyes. That is most of the skin.
It's just missing the meat.
The head has been pulled off with the skin still attached to it.
The meat and guts is all that's missing.
Yeah, there's no gut pile. Yeah, if this was a poacher, there'd be a gut pile. But the legs were disarticulated, the head was yanked off along with most of the hide, and everything else was taken. And this is just right here in Joe Bald.
Also, if you look at the trail on either side of us, there's no indication that it was dragged.
No, this was not dragged in here. And you can see there's an old road right in through here. There has not been vehicle traffic through here in a good long time.
There is an old bucket right here, but it's not a gut bucket, I don't think.
Well, it's busted too.
Yeah, it's been there longer than this corpse has.
That corpse is fairly fresh. It doesn't even stink. Eyeball completely missing out of the socket.
Mm-hmm.
If this had been a poacher, they probably would have kept the antlers.
Yep.
Because you can use them to call in other bucks. This is just fucking bizarre. I don't even want to disturb it, but I'm gonna. There's no rigor mortis. The ears still move. This flesh is still soft. This is recent, like maybe last night. There's no smell to it. There's still blood on the rocks right there. What the shit did we walk into?
Let me know when you want me to cut the recording.
Go ahead. Well, folks, what do you guys think of that?
Yeah, but I mean, there is blood. There is blood out there, but it was just kind of like spackled about.
Yeah, there's not a lot of it. You know, in that whole area, we did find blood, but just not a lot.
That bucket that was over there, whenever the camera kind of panned over to it and then panned away, that was me leaning in to look at it. There's a bit of blood like spattered in front of it, but not enough for it to have been a full deer carcass's worth of blood. Like there's not a lot of blood.
And if it had been killed there would have been not only blood, but the gut pile would have been there. And I could still move the ear and like move the flesh on the face. The rigor hadn't set in. I don't think it had been there very long. There were only a few flies even on it. It was the tissue and the face was still soft. Karen Polson says carried there and dismantled. I think it was probably killed somewhere in Joe Bald and then either carried there because, well, like Noah said, there was no drag marks. Even though there was that old road there were no vehicle tracks on that road. We walked back in there. If somebody had poached that, they probably would have dumped that from a vehicle. But there's no vehicle tracks anywhere near there. Nothing was dragged. The gut pile's gone, and most of the body. And that wasn't the full hide. That was like the head had been pulled off, and when it was ripped off, it was like most of the back. There still would have been the hide from the legs and the chest and the abdomen. That was like it took a big swath of the flesh of the hide that was on the back.
And until
Steve, it was jagged. The head was not cut off.
Antilio Pampanin said that rigor sets in, then sets out. Doesn't stay on the last few hours. You're partially right. It does leave out, but it's 36 to 48 hours after death. So that deer had not been dead long enough for rigor to set out.
Yeah, it sets in between 2 and 6 hours after death, and typically disappears within 36 hours, but can be as long as 84 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve, we did look at that. It was jagged. The head was either twisted or yanked off. There was no smooth cuts, not even on the flesh. And I didn't want to show that because I figured YouTube would gig me. But we didn't take pictures of that. But it was ragged, and the skin was just like wadded up and thrown over to the side with it.
Craig Schultz
doubt poachers would want that little rack. It was a tiny rack, but the thing is why leave them? I mean, people pay good money for deer antlers, even small ones.
Yeah, just
I mean,
the
around
material.
here, people use them in making carpentry, like cabinet handles and stuff.
Knife handles.
If you're a shed hunter, you can make some good money around here.
Yeah, because I've got a couple in my shop that I'm going to use for knife handles. The guy said, I'm giving them to you because you're my neighbor. He said, but if I sold these things, I could sell them for $50 an antler.
Well, the elk antler handles for a 1911, upwards of $300, depending on who you're buying them from. Kevin Bode says in Indiana, they dump them on the side of the road. Even like going back, we saw deer that had obviously been hit by car on the side of the road, but this was back in the back. It was really out of the way. I mean, if I was just looking to dump something, I'd have probably drove down by the water, threw it out, and drove away as quick as I could. This was off the beaten path and off the road.
Yeah, well, that's got a good point.
Future Trunks no skinny tracks.
Yeah, there weren't any tracks anywhere near it. There wasn't even any indication that like the deer had ran over there, because there wasn't like trees or not trees, but like twigs and plants or anything. Like,
yeah, we looked for the fresh meat, Robbie. We didn't see where anything came in there.
Yeah,
it had to have come in walking on that trail.
Proud of you, boys. Using the terminology and everything.
Yeah, and like, if you're a poacher, why would you leave the hide? Like, there's so much of that hide that was left. This is Missouri. Like, even if you don't tan it, that's still going to fetch you a lot of money. like, given how small those antlers were and how small that deer probably was, it wouldn't fetch you anything but, $200 tops. But still, like, that's money right there.
AC, yes, we did. It was not a smooth cut. It looked like it had either been twisted or yanked off. There were the flesh.
It was forced off.
Were ragged. And if I was going to take the neck off of something like that, if I was going to remove the head of a deer, I'm probably going to use either a bone saw or a big machete and hack through it. This had not been cut with any kind of force. Everything was still jagged. And when we do the close-ups on some of the pictures, I think you're going to see that.
And Nick Boror here said that was a fast kill, feed and move on. What if it was a family feed? Are you talking like if a person was feeding their family? Because if so, then they would have dumped the guts there. We didn't find any guts anywhere.
And in Missouri, because I think it's bow season right now, if you get one legally, you can go in and have it tested for chronic wasting disease for free. And why would you risk, unless you had test kits at home, why would you risk an untested deer?
And not only that, like, in the state of Missouri, if you can prove that you're hunting for food, then you can hunt out of season. So long as you're as long as you can prove, like, this is to feed my family, I don't have the means to go into town to Walmart and buy food for my family. I'm just hunting for food, or we live off grid or something like that, you know? You can hunt for food outside of the season, but you have to be able to very well prove that it's for food, not just for the sport of it.
And
all I can tell you is whatever did it was immensely strong.
Yeah.
Steve's got a really good point there. Steve Patton. Poachers are going to go for what's quick and easy. They're not going to sit there and
they took everything but
the hide
the
off
legs and the head.
And they're not going to pop the eyes out. They're not going to pop the eyes. A poacher. What good does a poacher have for the deer's eyes?
Now, it's entirely possible, like I told Noah when I first saw it, I said, crows will take the eyes. However, the crows couldn't have got the eye on the bottom. Both eyes were gone.
Yeah, both eyes were missing.
Okay, let's take a look at one of the first pictures of the leg, and we'll zoom in on it so you guys can really get a sense for what happened to these legs, because they were removed traumatically. They were not just simply cut off. Because I'm telling you, when every deer I've ever gotten, it is much easier to put a good solid, like say for example the gunner's mate. You take a good solid big knife like that, you just shove it into the joint, twist it apart, and cut the sinew, and off it comes. Yeah, it's going to take some strength to do it, but why would they do this?
Also, Wyatt, that's disgusting, dude.
What Wyatt say?
He said the eyeball is the fruit gusher of the animal world.
Fruit gushers. Okay. Look at this. That bone is not cut.
It's not at the joint. It's just snapped.
And look at the flesh here. The flesh is all ragged where it has been torn. This is not cut. You can see how uneven that is. If that had been a knife of even mediocre sharpness, you'd have cut the hide and went right into that joint. But that's not what was done.
And to answer Roxanne's question, go get you a chicken leg or after a drumstick or something like that, and try to break that. You can break it, but tell me how hard it is to break, and then multiply that by what would you say, about 10?
Yeah, at least. I've never
25.
I couldn't disarticulate a deer leg by myself. Every deer leg I've ever removed when we were cutting it up was just how I said: shove a big knife into it, cut the sinew, and break it apart. Well, sometimes we'd even use bolt cutters, but yeah, this is not normal. Look at how that's shredded. And the bone is jagged again.
And I don't believe that it was a bear, because we would have seen big-ass bear tracks going off into the woods.
If we'd have seen bear tracks or seen bear scat, bears don't do this. Bear would just eat this.
Yeah, and bears don't hide their tracks. They don't care.
And bears don't skin their food either.
Yeah, right. No, they don't give a shit.
They'll eat the flesh. If like in the case of that one we talked about in Denali, where it ate that hiker, they found the hiker. He was still wearing his clothes, and they found the pistol that he shot the bear with.
And
bears just don't care, man.
I'm pretty sure clothes would taste worse than deer hide.
Again, look at that. Look how twisted that. None of that's cut.
I'm just gonna say, I know there's people that are probably listening. And they're thinking, well, they're just kind of. This is the third such carcass that the three of us have been. Of course, I wasn't there today, but
wish you had been, man.
They called me as soon as they gotten
cell phone range.
We
had a signal.
So this is the third
deer carcass
that the three of us have found in that general area like that. You got
within just a few miles of each other.
You got the one we found on Blunk Road.
Actually, that was 2 deer at Blunk Road.
Yeah, there were 2 deer.
There was 2 deer at Blunk Road.
There were 3. I said 3 instances. There were 3 deers on Blunk Road because we found 2 down at the boat ramp, and we don't know where the rest of that one, where the first head we saw.
Just found the head.
Yeah.
Again, look at this. If this had been cut, these pieces of sinew would not be snapped. They would have been cut with the rest of the leg. This is not cut. Although this was taken at the joint. The joint probably gave before the bone did. But you can see this is not cut.
Casey's right. If it'd been a bear, there would have been a lot of dirt. Because bears bury their kill anyway.
Right.
They eat a little bit off of it, bury it, go off, do whatever they're going to do, and they'll come back and get it later. So, but yeah, there were 3 deer on Blunk Road. Then we found what was left of that one at Combs Ferry, and then they found this one today. So,
and the tree trout.
Yeah,
and the tree trout, yeah.
The Missouri tree trout. But that's 3 separate instances where we found deer carcasses, all of them done just like that, in varying states. Like a couple of those heads.
If
we
a
found
bird had decked this eye out, there would be jagged tears around the outside as it tried to get behind the eyeball. The eye socket would not be perfect. It just looks like somebody took a finger or a melon baller and took that eyeball right out of there.
I do also want to point out a comment that was made. Hillary said it's almost like something played tug of war with the legs. Honestly, I don't think so, because your joints, like the ligaments that connect your joints, are going to be the weakest in your legs. Like that's the weakest point in your leg. So if something was playing tug of war with the legs, the joint would be what was given way. And the bones wouldn't be broken.
You can see blood on the rocks, but it almost looks like it was wiped on it. You see? It doesn't look like it was dripped on it or pooled on it. It's like something just wiped its hand on
or just kind of scattered it.
So yeah, let's look at the.
It's not pooled; it's scattered.
Right.
Sorry, Robbie. I was just gonna say let's look at when we were in Joe Ball the first time with the 3 of us. It was already starting to get cool. Y'all said it was about what, 50 today?
Yeah, it was in the lower 50s when we first got there.
Yeah.
So, and we actually feel like there was something there stalking us. We don't feel like
for those who were asking about if it had been cut off, that's one of its vertebrae.
So we were talking about the flip-flop of how the first time we were in Joe Ball, it was cold. We felt like we were being stalked. Then when we were in Joe Ball, when it was warm, nothing. It was just a nice warm or nice friendly campground. But Combs Ferry was where the hot spot and activity were, and where we found the deer and all that stuff. But it was still hot. Then now y'all go back to Joe Ball today after it's starting to cool back down, and you find stuff like this over there. So,
and I don't believe that anything would have just eaten the gut pile, because the stomach would have been full of what it's been browsing on. It'd been grass and leaves and whatever else it was eating. I don't know of anything that eats the stomach.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of
anything in that area that looked like the contents of a stomach,
barring a bear, because bears just really don't give a shit. I can't think of anything that would intentionally eat the stomach or the intestine, like the larger small intestines.
We looked around this area, heavy leaf litter, lots of rocks. I didn't see anything that looked like a track anywhere near any of these.
Some of the only animal species I know for a fact just eat anything and don't, because their stomach acid is so strong that it'll dissolve bone and hair and stuff. Is like the crocodilians, alligators, crocodiles, caimans.
They'll eat bone and everything.
Yeah. So
yeah, they don't care.
But I don't know if other than the reptiles, and there's like Komodo dragons, things like that. Some will. But
this wasn't a wild pig. Wild pig would have left nothing.
Well, and two, a wild pig ain't gonna snap the bones. I mean, maybe a big pig could bite a deer leg off, but
it wouldn't have left anything behind.
It wouldn't have left anything.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was like, maybe a big pig has the power in its jaws to do that.
Call a group of pigs? Is it a sounder?
I think that's what it is.
If this was a sounder of hogs, there would have been absolutely nothing left. And we do have wild hogs in Missouri.
A group of hogs is called a passel or a team.
What's a sounder? Where did I get that? Little Patty says, you need hands to snap legs. And that's what I'm saying. Those bones, again, I will zoom right in on this. These are obviously not cut. I mean, this is all sinew and flesh, and you can see the ragged edge of that bone. This was twisted and snapped.
Yeah, that's that requires some great strength, and we don't have alligators and crocodiles in Missouri. We might have an alligator sighting every once in a while, but typically it's because somebody brought one in as a pet and then realized the thing was getting too damn big and then just chucked it out.
But the thing is,
they don't last very long here.
The thing is, a croc or a gator is not going to leave a kill on land. They're going to take it back into the water.
Right. It wouldn't be that far away from the water neither. And
they're going to take it and they're going to jam it in their meat locker up under a log or a root or something sunken in the water to tenderize it, and they're going to eat everything. You're not going to see it again because it's they might kill it on the land, but they're going to drag it in the water. Yeah. Randall's right. It's not going to leave a husk. It's going to drag it's going to kill it or grab a hold of it and drag it back in the water and drown it. And it's going to mechanically separate whatever it needs to separate with a death roll.
I didn't see any teeth marks on any of the bones.
Dr. 45120 has a question here. If Bigfoot is hunting that area, are there reported deer takes from hunting season down in that county?
Not that I've heard, but I will ask around some, because I still know a few guys that work patrol in that county. So I'll put the word out to some of the guys I know to see if anything's been reported to them. But I can tell you this: there are a lot of sightings in Stone County.
Yeah, that's the
reason I chose it as the setting for Lakeview Man. Although in the books I call it Sloan County because you're technically supposed to get the written permission of an elected official to use their title, and I didn't want to jump through that hoop, so I just called it Sloan County instead of Stone County. But there are lots of sightings in Stone County.
Yeah, I mean, whatever this was had to have had opposable thumbs. Because there's no clear teeth marks on the legs where it could have been two coyotes fighting over it.
There were no teeth marks on any of it.
There's not just guts spilled everywhere. So, again, coyotes aren't going to eat all the intestines. They're just not. That's not how coyotes roll.
And another thing, you can't really see that in this picture. But the edges of the hide are not smooth. If this had been skinned and then pulled off, there would be smooth edges where the knife cuts made. Where you take your gut hook and open it up and to remove the hide. This wasn't like that. The hide was all like it had ripped. It was not even. There were no straight line cuts. Wait, go ahead. Sorry, Noah.
Oh no, that was pretty well done. I was just saying, coyotes wouldn't do this. This is not a coyote kill.
coyotes leave nothing behind except for maybe hair, and they make a mess of the scene.
Well, they won't. They'll leave like the stomach contents behind too, because they're not going to eat leaves and shit.
Right.
But yeah, they're not going to take the time and effort to peel the eyes out of the deer neither.
Especially if they did, they would have had to chew the flesh around, chewed around the bone.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, even on the other side, you can't see it in this. I didn't hold it up. I didn't want to touch it anymore, and I had to. But the other eyeball's gone too, and it looks just like this one, just a clean, empty socket.
And to follow up on something that someone said earlier, they asked if it might have been like feral people, marking their territory. There's not a lot of reports of feral people out of the Ozarks. The only feral people we really have are the hill folk, and they're not really feral. They're just crazy.
Just hillbillies. But
even insane hillbillies. But
even if that were the case, if we did have feral people in Missouri, this park is on a populated peninsula. Only the park is abandoned. There's about 100 acres of that park that's just shut off. But just outside the park are houses, and there are houses all the way back to the mainland. Joe Bald is on the tip of a peninsula.
It's not the most remote area that you could potentially find. So feral people is not super likely, if you ask me.
Yeah, Jay Freiberg says insects eat the eyes. I've seen it many times on humans, but this hadn't been dead long enough for insects to have done that. It was still, the skin and everything was still pliable. It hadn't even hardened. It was still soft to the touch.
And like there wasn't even a stench. Like that body hadn't been there for very long.
The blood was still red. I believe this kill was probably less than a few hours old. Probably, if I had to guess, somewhere just before daylight.
Yeah, I mean, could have even been sooner than that because, like we said, no smell, no rigor mortis that we could notice. Like, there's clearly blood around it, so the blood hasn't, bleached away or
the blood is still red.
The blood is still red. It hasn't dried up. Like it's not wet, but it's not like insanely dry neither.
Just like at Combs Ferry, the blood was still red.
Like that was fairly recent.
I mean, look at the ragged end of that leg. If that had been sitting there a while, that blood would have already started to brown. Yeah, that looks like it had just been done.
Like I would even go so far as to say within the hour of us arriving was when that was put there.
Yeah, I don't think it had been there very long at all.
What time did y'all get there?
Judy Wheeler says Gugway are known face eaters. I don't know if that's the case on deer.
What was that, Robbie?
The Algonquin called them face eaters because they would eat the face of their human victims.
I said, what time did y'all get there this morning versus what time?
About 10:30, 11 ballpark. Yeah, Wyatt says it would have been black dried blood on the end of the legs.
When you watch the video, I'll play it again here in a minute. When you watch the video, there are flies on the head and the skin, but not very many. I mean, if this had been there a while, there'd be flies all over the place, but there were only like 5 or 6 flies.
Think about it. Anybody that's hunted deer, DA, you know this. Anybody out there that's listening that's hunted a deer, you got a certain amount of time to find that deer before the blowflies get to it. Because once the blowflies get to it, deer's done. You might as well just leave it where it lays because you can't do anything with the meat once the blowflies get to it.
Meat's rotten at that point.
There were no blowflies on there. There was regular flies, but I didn't hear, and the sound, and you know what they look like when you see them. You're like, crap. Might as well. I couldn't find this one quick enough. And that's usually what, a couple hours before. If it
takes a little while, yeah.
If it's warmer, then it does. You got less time, but if it's cooler, you got more time.
Yeah, it was like 52 or 53 when we got there.
So I would say No,
but it was about 70 when we left. So
Yeah, it warmed
that
up
was
quite a bit.
probably pretty spot on. I would say I would personally, just my opinion, I would probably back it up and say that it was probably closer to early sunrise, but obviously, I mean, that's just my opinion, just based on what I see. I'd say
The
anywhere
sun came
between
up around 6:30.
Yeah, I would say anytime between then and what Noah was saying is a safe bet. It was not.
This is not discolored. It's still flesh colored, and anybody that's seen anything like whether it's roadkill or not, within just a little bit of time in the sun, this stuff starts to blacken
and
starts to rot.
For a bit of perspective, actually, where we shot today's short, we found someone's little stealth campsite where they'd been sitting there slinging back IPAs like, Mr. Man Bun himself, but
with his blue suede shoes.
Yeah. But they were slinging back IPAs, and it's clear that it wasn't them that did it because there was enough beer on the ground there that I would have been drunk.
Well, it's not only that, it was a pretty good distance away. I mean,
yeah, it was quite a good distance away.
Now, how far was that from our little item that we found down there that time?
Down at Joe Bald?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 30, 40 yards. Not far.
Which little item are you referring to, though? Are you talking like the license plate or the print?
No. The thing that you and I found. Because I know y'all said you took pictures of it and you found it, so I didn't want to say
it. Let's do that. Let's talk about that. Robbie,
real quick.
Want to refresh them real quick about the blind and everything?
Real quick, what I was talking about with that other campsite is there was ice and shrimp on the ground where they dumped out their cooler. The ice was almost completely melted.
But
it was just kind of a glob of ice. So it was clearly warm enough that the ice was melting, which means that the blood would be drying.
Right. But, Robbie, this is the game trail.
All right. So when the first time that I was down there, and the next day that we went back after our track that we found had been ceremoniously erased. Noah and I were walking around. I was trying to show him a little bit about tracking. This was, before DA had his procedure done, so he was he couldn't walk around as much as he can now. So he was just sitting over there next to the lake, and Noah and I were walking around. We followed the ridge line up to where we thought the thing might have from the night before might have went back up. Followed it down into a little, I guess like a little. It wasn't like a big time mountain holler, but it's basically the same layout.
A little depression.
But if you were walking in that depression, you would have been totally protected from anybody driving down that road seeing you because how far down it was. So when I followed it on around, we followed back around and find this game trail right here. And we're seeing deer tracks and raccoon tracks and, just all kinds of stuff. So, this is obviously a game trail. Well, as I'm looking at the tracks and kind of trying to figure out what has went through there and see if we can see anything else. And Noah looks across the trail and says, "What is that?" And the best way to describe it until DA shows the pictures is like if you have a bird's nest and you take it and sit it up on its side to where the opening is facing you and it's sitting on its side. That's what it looked like. It was little saplings little saplings like that woven together to make a natural hunting blind, basically. And it was right on that game trail.
And that's the game trail over here running. This is the best shot I could get of it because from the front, the leaves with all the leaves gone and everything, you really couldn't tell what it was. But from the side, you can see how this thing it's all woven together and makes this little almost like a nest on its side.
You know what I wish we'd have done once we figured that out is taking a video
of you in it,
of me in it, and you walking and not being able to see, and just so people could see the perspective of how hidden you actually are inside that.
Yeah, that's one thing Noah and I were discussing today. we were really bad about not taking a lot of video or images. We're going to, anytime we go someplace like this, we are going to take a crap load of images like we did this time. We're taking video of anything we find, and we're taking lots and lots of pictures.
So how far was the deer y'all found today from this? 30 or 40 yards, is that what you said?
It might have been a little farther than that, because if you went, like there's that game trail, if you went up the hill, up to where those campsites are across that little road, it would have been back in the trees over there.
Yeah,
so maybe 50 yards.
The hill to the south of, or well, if you were going south by southeast, you could have just like walked straight to it. Like it's not very far.
And that's looking directly into it. It's hard to tell what it is because of the little saplings that have grown up. But just behind that little sapling is this almost like Robbie was describing it as a nest on its side. You could have crawled back in there and nobody would have seen you. That's the area behind it. And that's the direction where the deer kill was. This right here is one of the roads. You can see that, like the flat ground. You can't really see the road itself, but the road goes right between those trees. And that deer thing was up this hill a ways, just not very far.
Yeah, it really wasn't all that far away from that. I mean, if you go by, the direction of the roads, then yeah, it would take you a while to get there if you're just following the roads, because you got to kind of slalom around a bit. But
if you're just saw the eye shine, Robbie, it was right down in here.
Mm-hmm.
If you're walking as the crow flies, effectively, like it's not far.
And I don't know who that is. It just says Facebook user. That's what we were talking about. I literally climbed into that thing, and DA and Noah turned and walked about, 20 yards?
Yeah.
I turned around and knew where I was at, knew what I was wearing, and knew what to look for. Turned back around, couldn't see me. And knew where I was at looking as they were walking down the trail, and got within about, 10 feet, you say? Before you finally could find
And I knew where you were at.
And that was after the leaves had fell off.
This is how thick the foliage is around that blind area. And then that's back down by the shore of the lake.
Down where we saw that dude taking a dip again.
Yeah.
Hey, I can't say that I blame him. That water is, I mean, it was looking enticing earlier, and it was cold. I was like, man. I even told Dad this. I said, honestly, that water looks nice enough. I just kind of want to take a dip in it.
I think Greg is right. That's my thought on it, Greg. I think what y'all found was the dump site. I don't think that was the kill site.
I don't think it was either. There's not enough blood. And Robbie, these are the pics from when you were down there. There's your knife.
Yep. Now that was inside this. What DA was just showing pictures of.
A little blind. And you can kind of see the outline of that track there, but you can really see it here. I mean, up here you can see the toe pads, and then there's the heel pad. The heel pad's a little longer. I mean, that's probably every bit of 7 inches across.
Just so y'all can see, and I got really big hands. That's how big that knife is.
That's the exact knife.
Yeah, that's why I said that's how big that knife is. So you can see that it's not a little bitty pocket knife. Noah's got the same one in his hand. That is not a small knife.
Here's a better shot of it. You can see the claws up here and the heel pad way down here. That is a big, big canine print.
My one thing with the site we found with the deer up there is, if it was a poacher and that's not the kill site, then they put forth a lot of effort to not even get all of their money's worth out of it. Like, if you're going to poach a deer, you might as well take the antlers, might as well take the hide. Like, what's the point in just dumping the head and the
lower legs?
The lower legs. Like,
Robbie, this is where we found those tracks and where that truck ran over them.
The track was underneath that tire mark right there.
Also, the video and the pictures don't show it very well, but the blood was spattered around in quite a large radius over there. Like, it wasn't a lot of blood, but what blood there was just kind of strewn about everywhere. And like it showed in the video, there was a bucket there, and there was blood in front of the bucket. But like I said, not really enough.
It looked like it had been there a while.
Yeah, it looked like it had been there for a while, but there wasn't enough blood around for it to have been, like, gutted into the bucket. Like, it wasn't.
Right.
There wasn't enough blood around for the guts to have really been on the ground.
Bucket either.
Yeah.
Hey, KC, did you know that they did a DNA test on those lines of Savo and determined them to be man-eaters? I just wondered if you knew that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, wow, glad you let us know that. Casey says lions are known to lick up blood. These things may drink it. A lot of protein in blood.
Yeah.
That's why I said that comment, because he made that comment.
Dr. 45120 says, if the deer is taken only for food, leaving those items behind proves it's not trophy hunting. Taking the eyes doesn't really help their case, though.
And the head was not cut off.
And I mean, if you're gonna be hunting for food, you're not gonna be splitting the legs. You're not gonna be shattering bone in order to take the meat.
Yeah, you would have quartered it out and carried it out with the legs.
Unless they hit it with their car or something like that, and then dump the corpse out there because they're like, oh, free meat. But that still doesn't really carry a lot of water.
And Robert D, yeah, sure. If they didn't know what they were driving over and where it led to and what was already there, but if you already know exactly what you're driving across and where it's going to end, because you can see where they hit the gas at the first of it and gouged out a little bit further, so they knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah, they knew precisely what they were doing, removing those tracks. They peeled out over and over on those. Like, just
they were
intentionally destroying any semblance of prints in that mud as best as they could.
And if you look at that picture, you can clearly see where they drove through it, got their front tires on the solid part of the rocks, turned and backed out. They didn't keep on going. You can tell that they went through it, turned and backed out the exact way they came. So if it was kids just four-wheeler and just playing around, they wouldn't have done that. They would have kept on going. And you would have just had two sets of tracks going through. Not the going through and then you see how they cross over themselves? Because they turned and backed out.
And Robert D, that had to have been a four-wheel drive, because if it was a two-wheel drive, they would have gotten stuck in that mud. That was a four-wheel drive, probably with a locking differential, because you're not getting out of that mud very easily. If we took the Rogue into that, we'd get stuck. Hands down.
Yeah, we wouldn't have got our car out of there. Ryan, ED from over at Bizarre and the Unknown, he said, DA, that looks like an accidental drop, almost like something was startled and dropped it. That would explain the blood splatter. Poacher would leave a lot and there would be more remains. To me, it just looks like they probably dismembered the corpse there. It may have bled it somewhere else. It may have killed it somewhere else. But those legs look like they were snatched off and just tossed aside, because they're, I'll run the video again and let you guys watch it again in its entirety. But if you look as we're walking up, they're not just like laid to the side or where somebody had, cut them off and tossed them off to the side. They're just scattered. They're just randomly scattered. And that's what Robbie was telling you about with those tracks. But let's watch that video again.
Real quick, Casey pointed out, somebody a while ago asked if we noticed any marrow in the bones on the deer. We weren't looking that close.
Yeah, I didn't check the marrow.
I didn't get out the microscope.
I did not check for bone marrow.
I was more so worried about getting pictures, getting footage, and keeping my hand on my handgun in case we got rushed by something.
Lyle, I think it's probably the other way around. I think mountain lions are more scavenge off of Dogman or Bigfoot kills than Bigfoot or Dogman scavenging off of
And I've heard mountain lions scavenging off of coyote kills before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard mountain lions chasing coyotes away from a kill. All right, let's watch that video again. Let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
All right, everybody. So we're in Joe Bald right now. We decided to take a little look-see around. And as you can see, there is parts of a deer strewn about,
Notice,
including broken bone.
this has not been cut off. This has been snapped off. And it's the same way on all of them. There's a huge chunk of bone there. All of the legs. This one's been disarticulated completely at the joint. This one's been snapped off. You can see where it's part of the sinew still attached. Hell, it's twisted. You can see where that's been twisted off. That was not cut. But the real kicker is the head. Head's missing the eyes. That is most of the skin.
It's just missing the meat.
The head has been pulled off with the skin still attached to it.
The meat and guts is all that's missing.
Yeah, there's no gut pile. Yeah, if this was a poacher, there'd be a gut pile. But the legs were disarticulated, the head was yanked off along with most of the hide, and everything else was taken. And this is just right here in Joe Bald.
Also, if you look at the trail on either side of us, there's no indication that it was dragged.
No, this was not dragged in here. And you can see there's an old road right in through here. There has not been vehicle traffic through here in a good long time.
There is an old bucket right here, but it's not a gut bucket, I don't think.
Well, it's busted too.
Yeah, it's been there longer than this corpse has.
That corpse is fairly fresh. It doesn't even stink. Eyeball completely missing out of the socket.
Mm-hmm.
If this had been a poacher, they probably would have kept the antlers.
Yep.
Because you can use them to call in other bucks. This is just fucking bizarre. I don't even want to disturb it, but I'm gonna. There's no rigor mortis. The ears still move. This flesh is still soft. This is recent, like maybe last night. There's no smell to it. There's still blood on the rocks right there. What the shit did we walk into?
Let me know when you want me to cut the recording.
Go ahead.
And just to reiterate, there was no smell. Like,
Yeah,
it didn't smell like.
It didn't stink at all, and you could see in the video there were flies on it, but not very many.
And that's part of what makes me feel like it was killed, like, at least close, because that was recent. There wasn't, like, rigor mortis hadn't set in, and rigor mortis typically sets in within, like I said earlier, within 2 to 6 hours. So it hadn't been super long since that kill had been made. Like, I don't think that was a dump site. I think that was maybe a few feet from where it may have been killed initially. But
We should have spiraled around that area looking for more blood, but I didn't see any, like it was immediately close by.
yeah, and I didn't see anywhere where it could have been dragged over there or where it had made its way over there. Like I mean, deer are creatures that are going to take the easiest path when they can. So
If there's a trail, they'll follow it.
yeah, so if there's a paved road, the deer are probably going to walk the paved road because it's easier than just jumping through the brush all the time.
Yeah, but deer are smart and they're skittish and they're going to stay away from the road unless they've got to cross it, though. They're not just going to follow it. That's why you don't generally see deer running lengthways down the road. You see them cross when they have to.
When it comes to busy roads, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
But
that was just like a narrow track through the woods.
Yeah, but it's still a road. They're not going. They can't differentiate between, oh, that's a regular road. It's a cleared path in their normal psyche is what I'm saying. So that they're not going to walk. That's why if you look at when you see a game trail, you'll see maybe a diagonal, but you'll never see deer continually walking down a straight line down a path. They're not going to do that. They're going to cross it, and that's it. They're not going to follow what they view as unnatural, I guess, is a good.
They'll follow a game trail, but not a road.
Right, but they're not going to walk for a long distance down even a game trail. They'll cross it, and they might diagonal it, and you might have, 15 to 20 feet of tracks, but they're not going to stay on that because, number one, when they're on a game trail, they're out in the open. When they're in the woods and in the trees, they're a lot harder to see. So that's what I'm saying. That's why you don't see them continually walking down a path like that, because they equate being out in the open to being in danger.
And when you was looking at where the spine had been disarticulated, if I had to guess, I would guess it was done right about where the shoulders are on the deer.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Just from the amount of spine that was still attached to the neck, I would say it was about where the neck meets the shoulders on the deer.
So, Future Trunks made a comment, said possibly a cult seems more intended of a drop site than animalistic behavior. Hunter's Moon was recent too. The thing with it being a cult or ritualistic would be they wouldn't snap the bones because bones are integral in rituals. It's easier to cut it, but the bones are integral in rituals. They would have taken the antlers and they would have taken the skull.
And even the amount it would have taken to disarticulate those legs like that, the amount of strength it would have taken would have been tremendous. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Not even in my prime, I don't think.
Like I told Robbie when we were on the phone with him in the car, like right after this happened, I'm confident that I could snap a deer's leg if I had it anchored to the ground and sat there and kicked it a few times. I don't think that I have the upper body strength to snap a deer's leg like that. But
it not only ripped the legs off, it ripped the vertebrae where the head met the shoulders.
And like clearly, I'm not a small dude, right? But I'm pretty sure I would have to kick it multiple times to snap a leg like that, and we would have noticed impacts where they had kicked the shit out of that deer's legs.
Yeah, this was just
bizarre
beyond words.
Yeah, it's just like I said.
I don't think there was anything ritualistic about that.
I don't either. I mean, it was the way it was disarticulated. That was not done with a knife. It was done with something with hands, but it took a lot of strength.
And
I'm not even sure like a big bodybuilder could have done that.
Listen, I've dated enough goth girls to know that if you're going to be sacrificing an animal to a deity, you do it slowly, and you keep the bones. The skull, the whatever bones you can really get your hands on, the antlers. You keep all that. You don't just dump it.
That was cult activity. The cult stuff got left behind.
Yeah. All the important stuff for a ritual got left behind.
And
they just took meat.
Back on the menu, boy.
They didn't. We didn't look to see if they took the throat, which we should have.
Well, all of the flesh that was still attached to the stump of the neck was ragged. It had not been cut.
I think Rodney's got a good point. I think if it'd been a Dogman, it would have been a lot messier, and I don't think it would have been. That would have been the kill site. I would 100% said that would have been the kill site, and there would have been a lot more blood. But Bigfoot, I think, is smart enough to say, this is not where I'm going to leave it because this is, or I killed it here. I'm going to do what I need to do. Then I'm going to carry it over here and dump it over here because this is where other predators are going to come to. And I don't want them coming to me. I want them coming over there so they're not messing with me while I'm messing with it. That's why I think that was not the kill site, Noah. That's why I think it was Bigfoot, and I think it was not the kill site because they're smart enough to do, just like they're smart enough to hang a deer carcass in the tree at Combs Ferry. to freak us out and stick a fish head in the tree. I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't. And what we discussed, what we encountered that night down in Joe Bald when the three of us were down there, I believe was a Dogman. I don't think this was a Dogman kill.
I don't think.
I definitely think this was done by something intelligent, and I think if it was a Dogman, it would have been far messier.
Yeah,
I would agree.
That's what, I think that's what Rocky was saying.
Where it was killed.
I think there would have been blood spattered everywhere if it was a Dogman kill. Well, and I think the throat would have been clearly ripped out if it was a Dogman kill.
Well, I believe that they would probably kill like most big wolves and cats and things like that by tearing the throat out, or the suffocation or whatever. So yeah, I think that would 100% been the kill side if it was a Dogman. But I think it was more than likely a Bigfoot, and that was where it made its dump to keep. Okay, other predators are going to go over here. They're not going to come bother me because they're going to go where that smell is.
The one thing that I would say, like, if that is the dump site, is whatever it was had to have the strength to lift it off the ground.
But
like, it wasn't being dragged.
The way the hide was removed was just like the one down on Blunk Road.
Yeah.
Well, think about it. No, you've been squirrel hunting, right?
Yeah, I've been squirrel and turkey hunting.
You skinned a squirrel, right?
Yeah.
That's what that deer looked like. What a human would do to skin a squirrel.
Yeah, just ripped apart. Yeah.
So imagine a Bigfoot. It breaks all four of the legs off, throws the legs down, breaks the neck, and then
just
skin off and
just skin. Gives it a good tear.
Like I said, and a Bigfoot would be like the deer to a Bigfoot would be like a squirrel to us. Think about all the squirrels you've ever skinned. That's what that looks like. But you don't skin a deer that way.
Right, yeah.
Justin Oldfart's got a good comment. He says something with claws tends to use the claws, and there are no claw marks.
Yeah.
There were no claw marks.
I want to point out a bit of an off-topic comment here. Robin Ray asked, what kind of goth girls you been dating? The fun kind.
House, you would be interested in the goth girls.
Of course.
Look, Noah's got his own Twitch show after this, so you can go hear all those.
Not after this tonight, but
yeah, he does tend to go into a lot of gory details on his channel.
Not like that kind of gory details, you weirdos.
I don't know. KC might disagree with you on that one.
Hey, listen. That the dude in the restaurant would
disagree with you.
E.D. Testerman says it's hard to pull the hide off a deer carcass. Yeah, but that's where you skin a squirrel. You make the cut, knock the guts out of it, grab the skin by the tail, and just
give it a good rip
right off there. That would require a tremendous amount of strength to do that to a deer,
which we don't have. But
a 8 foot tall, 1,000-pound primate would.
Yeah.
Hillary says the mama in me is plugging my ears, Noah.
Hey, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything bad at all. I just said I'm dating the fun kind, okay? Robert D said vampire girls. Well,
E.D. Testerman's right. Squirrels, rabbits, and snakes, they're easy.
Yeah.
If you're going to hide a deer like that, yeah, it is not easy. I mean, you've got to gut it, hang it, and then start using a knife to get the hide off, because it doesn't just peel off.
That's the whole point, though, is that looks like what a human would do to skin a squirrel or a rabbit. We couldn't do that to a deer. Animal. That's the whole point, but that's what it looks like. It looks like somebody did the exact same thing to that deer that we would do to a squirrel, which we don't have the strength to do. But what does?
A bipedal, ape-like creature?
Yeah.
A very angry silverback gorilla.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, whatever put it there, whatever it, like, wherever that came from, if it was a dump site, it had to have been strong enough to carry it off of the ground.
Well, look, just go back to Legend of Boggy Creek, the first one, the only one that matters, because the rest of them were stupid and they got away from the realism. But anyway, the guy talks about he had those two prize winning hogs, and each one of those hogs weighed 250 pounds, and the creature picked both of those hogs up, one under each arm, and stepped over a 6-foot fence, I think he said, DA. Stepped over it with the hogs, one under each arm. That's 500 pounds. That deer probably wasn't 500 pounds.
No, that deer was a little 4-pointer.
Yeah.
That probably wasn't more than about 80 to 100 pounds. It wasn't a big buck. Richard from the boat from the Combs Ferry expedition, he says, my son and I were hunting a few days ago and we had something growling at us. My son said it sounded like a Tasmanian devil. It was pretty close to us. Were you hunting anywhere near Joe Bald by any chance?
And the reason why I would say that I don't think that it was a poacher, or rather, there's a lot of reasons I'd say it wasn't a poacher, but another good reason I would say would be with the way the head was on the ground. That wasn't just chucked over there.
Yeah, it looked like it was placed there.
Yeah, it wasn't like someone pulled up in their truck and just chucked those bits out of the truck. Those were ripped off and then just
sat aside.
Yeah, just sat to the side. Those were deliberately placed down.
Northwest Native Tracker says it takes 600 pounds of pressure for a pig skinning machine to pull the hide off a pig.
Checks out. But, you know, like, it feels so strange that, like, yeah, I mean, it absolutely could have brought something over there. But it doesn't seem like it would have been poachers that brought it over there, because there's no drag indicators.
No, I'm not. That's what I'm saying. It carried it over there.
Down
and I think it was split apart there. I think it was ripped apart right there.
I think it was killed somewhere else, but it was ripped apart there. Down on Blunk Road, the horns were missing. In fact, one of them, the entire top of its skull was gone.
Yeah.
Along with the brains. Now, they said the Native Americans would use brains to tan the hide, but the hide, much like this one, had been ripped off and tossed to the side. The hide was not kept.
That's where that old saying came from. It's got just enough brains to tan its own hide. Mm-hmm. That's true. Each animal.
The brains on that were gone, and the hide was laying on the ground about 2 feet away from it.
Mm-hmm. And the ones in Blunk Road were a bit older. Like
those look like they'd been there a couple of days because they kind of stunk.
Yeah, the ones in Blunk Road were
laying in the middle of the road still freaks me out.
Yeah, they were quite a bit older than that one, and they were quite a bit older than the one we saw in Combs Ferry too.
Yeah.
I'd say the one in Combs Ferry and the one y'all found today were running on the same time frame of time that we found it.
I would say you're about right. Yeah.
And I would say probably the ones that we found at Blunt Road, probably a day and a half at the most.
I would say a day, yeah.
Yeah, but I still think of that night when we're driving down there. I'm like, what the hell's in the middle of the road up there? And Robbie's like, I think it's a head. And like idiots, we parked and then walked way back up like 50 yards up the road to go back and look at the head.
And it was, in fact, a deer head.
Yep.
And its horns were gone.
And then there were 2 more heads down there at the boat ramp. And
I wonder if the ones that we saw at Blunk Road were dumps.
Maybe.
I wonder if those were poacher dumps.
But the hide was laying right there next to the head that was missing the top of its skull.
I mean,
if they poached it, they didn't keep the hide, and they had went through the trouble of taking all of the flesh off the bones. That whole rib cage was intact.
Yeah, it's true.
But there was no flesh on any of it.
Though, to be fair, the hide damage could also be attributed to other animals and insects picking apart those bodies while they're there.
True. KC, there are tons of deer in that area.
Because poachers, like you said, and like somebody else said in the chat earlier, poachers, when they're in a hurry, will just take the backstrap and dump it and go.
Like the backstrap and the sweetbreads.
Tenderloins, stuff like that. Stuff is easy to get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cut it off and out the door.
And then dump it, and then other animals pick it apart.
Yeah, but to answer KC a little more detail, we saw deer in the park. There's plenty of deer in that area, and when on the way back, I think we saw 2 or 3 roadkill deer. So there's plenty of deer in the area. Yeah, Casey, at least it didn't leave it on the hood of the car.
Casey asked, have you noticed a decrease in the deer population in that area? Actually, if I'm being honest with you, kind of the contrary. We've been seeing more deer down there lately.
Population's been up this year, and there's a ton of acorns this year, and the deer love those acorns.
Richard said, out by Bull Shoals, down by the lake.
Bull Shoals ain't that far away. As the crow flies, well, the one that's on the other side, but Bull Shoals from there is, as the crow flies, probably no more than 20 or 30 miles. Maybe not even that far. Because if you go down Table Rock to Lake Taneycomo, and then down to the far end of Lake Taneycomo, it goes into Bull Shoals. So they're really kind of part of the same waterway.
We're at 9:30, fellas. Do we want to just say a quick word about Scallywag?
Yeah, let's go ahead and say a quick word about Scallywag. Robbie, you want to do the honors?
Why, certainly. Put my drink down. No. Grab my little visual aid here.
There was a Scallywag featured in that video too. That was the crow's nest that was in my hand.
So, as you've heard us talk many, many times before, Scallywag is another one of our fine affiliates, veteran-owned company, Craig Burhart. Super, super nice guy. You know, we already knew he was. We proved it with all the stuff he's doing for the North Carolina hurricane effort. Super, super nice guy. So if y'all want to find a way to help out with that, go to, I think he's doing it through the website, right, DA? You can find out where to go. But
go to Scallywag.
Yeah. On top of that, I mean, make some of the best knives you'll ever find anywhere on the face of the earth. That's a big statement, but I believe it's true. If you're a fan of DA's books and you read the books, you know, from about Blood Eagle on, I think, or Blood Eagle's the first Wild Hunt book where Scallywag was first mentioned. And then on, that's the only knife that Team Odin has carried is Scallywag products. So check them out. Use code DA Roberts 10 at checkout. Get yourself 10% off. Also, that does stack up with the blemish blades, which most of the time the blemish blades are just the box is messed up, something like that. I think DA's got one knife or two.
Just a little scratch on the blade.
Yeah. And it took you forever. Took you forever to even find it. But you see all of us playing with our Scallywag knives during the shows. We've all got boarding axes and bounties and gunner's mates and which one is this? I forgot. I got
Jolly Roger.
Jolly Roger. I got so many freaking names running around in my head of these knives. I forget which ones are which, and I forget
this
which
one's called Double Trouble, double bladed.
Much like the old gun statement, if you know how many knives you got, you don't have enough. Just like if you know how many guns you got, you don't have enough. So take that statement to heart, people. Go to Scallywag Tactical, DA Roberts 10 at checkout. Get yourself some knives. They've got a really good sale going on right now. The Shark's Tooth is like $24 now, I think. Right,
Shark's
DA?
Tooth is a beautiful little knife.
Yeah.
In fact, this is it right here.
That's a handy little poker.
Little push dagger.
And you know, they've got the other push dagger, the Dugan, if you prefer something that's more of a traditional type push dagger. I think mine's in my go bag, so I can't pull it out and show you.
Mine's on my go bag too.
And Noah's got the transformer, which is another. It's a fixed blade that transforms, quote unquote, the name transformer into a push dagger. So technically, they got 3 types of push daggers. So go check them out. Tell them we sent you. That's all I got to say about that.
And don't forget, use discount code DA Roberts 10 for 10% off your order.
So one thing with the deer carcass in Combs Ferry that we found, or rather with the deer leg that we found, we didn't find the rest of the deer, but it was very similar. It was very similar just in nature of what we just found in Joe Bald today.
The only differences were the legs were the leg with the hoof part was still attached to the skin, and there was no head.
Mm. And the one in Blanc Road, or not Blanc Road, the one in Combs Ferry, there was blood accumulated at the bottom of the tree underneath it. So it was fairly fresh, and that had dripped down into the leaves below. The one that we found in Joe Bald, Joe Bald. The one we found in Joe Bald today, there was blood just kind of strewn about near it. So what I reckon, like I said earlier, it was torn apart there, and it wasn't exactly like delicately put down. Like I reckon the legs were split and then just kind of chucked to the side.
But see, I think that's where the differences in that lie, Noah, is the purpose. The purpose of that one in Combs Ferry was to scare the crap out of us and get us out of there.
Oh well, yeah. The one in Combs Ferry, yeah.
The one that y'all found this morning, I think that was a meal.
I think that was a meal kill for sure.
Yeah.
We were moving down one of the roads.
Yeah.
And I just stopped and went, "Is that a head?" And Noah looked over and goes, "Yeah, that's a deer head." So we had to walk off the road a bit to get to it. I just happened to glance over and see it.
So,
and we'd been through that area. Here's the funny part: we'd been through that area 2 or 3 times before we saw it.
The other way was the direction we were going through there, and because of what you were talking about when we were doing the tracking class in Ohio, because of the angle and the lighting and whatnot, we were passing by it, and the only way that I would have seen that is if I had turned around in my seat to look behind us, and I hadn't done that because of the way the trees were angled. But then when Dad turned around and went that way back, that's when we saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's where the big difference is that we're talking about. I think that's where it comes from, is the purpose. You know, because you even said yourself that the hide looked like it was placed there, or set down. But it could have been done the exact same way. It could have been hung in the tree, but it wasn't. It was put on the ground. So why was the other one in the tree? To make sure we saw it.
Yeah, that was put at our head level, so we would see it. And so was the tree trout, the great Ozarks tree trout.
Missouri tree trout, yep.
Yeah, the Missouri tree trout, and we love them.
So I think that's where the differences come in. And there may be some significance to the fact that the head was pulled off of and it was just the carcass of that one. That there may be some type of significance to that we don't know about, that they think we know, or maybe it's just, well, crap, they pulled its head off. That's scary, which obviously, yeah, it is.
Yeah, the what we saw in Combs Ferry was definitely a warning. That was territory markers. Like, hey, y'all need to go back where you came from, or we're gonna have trouble. And like you said, yeah, the one in Joe Bald today, that was a food kill. That was for sure a food kill, because there wasn't an ounce of serviceable meat left. Like,
well, there might have been some on the neck.
Like I said, we didn't check the neck, but even so, like, there's not a ton of meat in the neck of a deer.
Right.
So it took the bulk of the meat, whatever it was, be it poachers, coyotes, whatever tore that deer apart. I don't think it was poachers. I certainly don't think it was coyotes. But whatever did it, that was for food.
Yeah, it was definitely a kill to be eaten.
Missouri tree trout, not
Trout.
as in fish, because it was a fish head. It's a Missouri tree trout.
Trout.
I can't find those pictures. I was gonna show them.
Do you need me to text them to you? I should have them handy.
I'm not finding. Oh no, I've got them on my phone.
Y'all both had them on your phone because you both showed them in the tracking class. Noah showed them in the one he helped in, and you showed them the one you helped in, because y'all both had them and I didn't.
No, I showed it in both ones.
Send it to me in Facebook.
Okay, give me a second. I gotta find them. I'll just send them to the group chat again.
Okay, that'll work.
There you go. There's all 4 of them. All 4 of the ones that I have.
Okay. Let me get those downloaded and I'll bring those up, and then we can do a comparison.
Lyle McThompson asked, when you guys came up on the deer carcass, did you think you were being watched? Are you talking in Joe Bald or are you talking in Combs Ferry? In Combs Ferry, absolutely. Absolutely 100% we were being watched.
We felt like that before we found the carcass, though.
We felt like that when we made it in.
I'll tell you when we felt like we were being watched and when we felt like we were not being watched. When we stepped off the boat and when we got on the boat and went around the cove and got that island out of sight, or peninsula, whatever it is. That was the beginning and the end of us feeling like we were being watched.
So one thing versus what we saw today that I want to point out with this picture up real quick is the blood on that is a lot more dried than the blood we found today.
Yeah.
That was put in the tree on a hot day, mind you. So
it was probably still 85 or 90, and it was late at night.
I would say that was
zoom in on the limb that's sticking off to the side, though. DA, right? And see how dark that blood is, or dark red that is. That's still the same color of what y'all had today.
Okay, now
I would say that was an older kill, though.
Yeah, it was older, but not by much.
Mm-hmm.
Now look at this one. There's a similarity to it, but the other one, it obviously twisted and tore a bunch of the hide with it. I think a big chunk of the hide had either already been torn off of the kill or just tore away easier than it did on that one. That's why I think that one in Combs Ferry, like you were saying, I think it might have been a little older than this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you're talking about maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours difference.
Mm-hmm.
Not like
that's.
I'm just saying that just so people understand that when we say older, we're not talking like days older.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about a couple of hours at the boat.
Yeah. The whole fresh meat thing when it comes to tracking with trees, saplings, that sort of thing. I mean, it applies just the same with the blood of the animal.
Yeah,
it just blood is gonna lighten in color in 15-minute intervals. Roxanne Delgado said, I told a friend of mine about the Missouri tree trout, and her 6-year-old grandson was listening. So now she says he looks for fish in the trees wherever they go. That's super funny.
Richard says, whatever it was at Combs Ferry even stayed there when you all walked up to the boat ramp. It had no fear of people. Yeah. Remember, Richard, when we were backing off, all the eye shine we saw up in the trees?
Yeah.
If we'd have done with the original plan and taken 2 and left 1 person, I don't think that 1 person would have been there when we went back.
When the boat made it back, I don't think they would have still been there.
I think just if 1 person had remained behind, I don't think they'd have been there when the boat got back.
And there was a parking area that we were standing close to, like where that boat jetty was. I reckon if we'd parked our cars there,
you can still fish there during the daytime, but they go in and lock the gate, which is about half a mile up the road.
Oh, okay.
You can't get in there after dark at all.
Even so, if we'd parked our cars there, I reckon we would have came back from being in the Combs Ferry area to find damage on the cars.
Probably rocks or something.
Mm-hmm. So it's very good that we entered by boat, because I don't know for certain that that we wouldn't
as close as we could have got with the car would have been that boat area, because there's no way you can get a car down any of those trails in Combs Ferry.
Well, particularly with all the rocks in the road.
Yeah, boulders and trees and busted up concrete picnic tables. And
the entrance to Combs Ferry was precarious to climb over. Like we were helping each other climb over those rocks because of how precarious it was.
Patricia Gambino Harrington says, guys, a stupid question. Why do people gift these things? I don't know. I do not recommend it. The last thing you want is any kind of wild animal associating you with food.
Oh, yeah. Besides, the ducks and geese at the park, don't go out giving peanut butter to Bigfoot or, chucking berries to a bear, because the moment they're like, oh, food comes from the people, the moment people aren't giving them food, they're going to get aggressive. Yeah. If you're going to a park and throwing out corn for the geese, I don't think anybody's going to care. Especially because a goose bite doesn't really hurt, and all you got to do is slap them a little bit and they'll leave you alone. Speaking from experience, I have punched a goose in the head, and they will leave you alone after you do that. But yeah, I mean, dangerous animals for sure. Don't feed them. Don't give them gifts.
It's a bad idea.
It's a bad experience all around. Now, if you're trying to rehabilitate an injured wolf or something like that, then sure, maybe. But there's a lot more that goes into rehabilitating an injured animal than just feeding it.
Boys, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark, and I think we've pretty much presented all the video and photo evidence we collected. My gut says Bigfoot.
I would agree. Yeah. Yep. Like we said, there was no distinct claw marks. There was no distinct teeth marks. Right. There was no distinct knife marks. So that rules out people.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the way those were twisted, and you could see the sinew frazzled where it had been snapped. If it had been person, they would have just cut that. I mean, it would have been much easier to take it apart.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like speaking from the perspective of someone who has the knowledge of how to do that. If you're gutting a deer, if you're cutting a deer apart for the purpose of food and dumping the shit that you don't want, you're not gonna dump just the lower halves of the legs and the head somewhere and not keep the pelt. Speaking from the monetary perspective, there's money in the horns, in the antlers, in the hide. And
there are people that put scrimshaw on horns. Yeah, I mean, you can sell even little horns like that can draw a pretty good price.
Right. Yeah. So from a monetary perspective, the antlers and the hide, why would they leave those behind?
There are people that'll pay good money for a deer skull.
But also from that too. And from a realistic perspective, you're not going to leave the hide if you're cutting up the meat, but you're also going to jam a knife into the joints and cut those apart instead of putting forth the couple 100 pounds of pressure it's going to take to snap those legs. Not only snap the bones, but to rip the flesh apart.
Now, if that had been a deer kill I had made out in the middle of the woods, probably what would have happened was would have strung it up and dropped the guts. Mm-hmm. Left the gut pile and then I would have tied ropes across the legs, put the ropes over across my shoulder or across my chest, and I'd have dragged it back to my vehicle. Uh, even a little buck like that, I would guess it. I'm just guessing because I didn't see the body, but from the size of the head and the antlers, it couldn't have been very big. It was probably only, just that was his first year of growing antlers. I mean, he was just a little 4-pointer. So my guess is he probably didn't weigh much more than about 100 pounds, and 100 pounds of dead weight's a lot to carry. So I probably would have been dragging it out, and there were no signs of anything being dragged in there.
That'd be me, Lyle.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm not volunteering Robbie for this, but I know he'd volunteer for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lyle asked, which one of you guys would volunteer to stay in a bear-proof steel cage in Joe Bald all night with a video camera?
Yeah, okay. I'd do it without the cage. Y'all know that.
Yeah. Okay, Robbie, would you spend the night in Moon Valley?
As long as I have my gun. Plural.
Dude, there is something creepy about Moon Valley, but it's mostly the people in Moon Valley that make it creepy.
But I think our next expedition where we're going to go and try to get video and because now that Moon Valley and then it's getting cold, nobody's going to be down there swimming. There might be the occasional fisherman, but it's going to go back to having very little traffic. So I want to go back down to Moon Valley and see what we can get down there.
Yeah, the terror in Moon Valley and the terror in Joe Bald and the terror in Combs Ferry are 3 different terrors, but they're still terrifying, Joe Bald is kind of like a mix of multiple different things. But our experience in Combs Ferry felt like it was a pack of Bigfoot.
I used to refer to Joe Bald as little LBL, but if that is a Bigfoot kill, I think we may see some territorial issues coming.
It's very possible, unless what Jessica said is true, and there's something underground that the Dogmen are kept underground for a specific period of time, and they're only let out certain times, and those times are when Bigfoots are not in the area. Because
I'm getting a lot with the other ablation done, and now that the ticker's doing good, I'm going to be doing more lengthy excursions where I can hike farther back in. I want to go back to Joe Bald with a group and find the other 24 power boxes.
Yeah,
there is more at Joe Bald that we have not discovered, and Joe Bald goes a lot farther back down that peninsula than any of the roads go.
I want to go across, like where you and Steve were filming, and you caught because we started to go up there, but it was dark and we were losing signal, and Noah basically turned me around and said, come on. I want to keep going up that way.
We've gone up in there before. Eventually it just kind of leads out to kind of the entrance area, but there's a bunch of like picnic tables up in there.
That's where we were. Richard says, Wyatt and I'll go to Joe Bald with y'all. Hell, guys are totally welcome. And we got a perfect excuse for being in there because the sign on Joe Bald says day use only, but the boat ramp is accessible 24 hours a day. So if we've got a truck down there with a boat on it, we've got no reason to be questioned at any time, day or night.
Yeah, and going into Combs Ferry, once that peninsula was visible, it felt like we were being watched.
Yeah, as soon as we came into view of that peninsula, you could feel it.
There's just an atmosphere to that place that's just like no other.
What I said, well, that's some hairy looking shit right there when we come around the corner.
Yeah.
And DA said, that's where we're going. I said, ooh.
Well, the really wild part is as you're going out across that channel, you can see lights of houses and crap all over the areas around it. But when you're looking at the peninsula of Combs Ferry, it's just black.
Yeah.
Just black as the dead of night. There is not a light at all.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, that's where we're going. Robbie's like, we're going where? I'm like, over there, that dark spot.
And not like I was like, where? Because I'm scared. I was like, I couldn't see it. I mean,
yeah, he didn't know where it was.
It's like literally when you point it out, and you look at it, it's almost like somebody took a black sheet of construction paper or whatever, and then took just a very, very different shade, slightly different shade of black, and drew an outline of the side view of a peninsula on it, just enough where you could barely make a difference, or make out the difference between the dark and the and then you got the water, which was dark too, almost black. Yeah. So you basically used a different shade of black.
You could tell at a glance you were going in where there was no one.
And it was truly a time to pull a Margolin and embrace the suck.
Yeah. And as many bugs as we ate, because that just every time we would like turn on our headlamps. I mean, we were wearing lamps like this one on our heads and we're carrying flashlights, but you turn that on and just instantly, just a cloud of bugs all around you. I must have swallowed a pound of bugs just breathing.
And like I was saying, like the atmosphere there is just vastly different. I mean, like the atmosphere at Joe Bald, like it's a creepy place, particularly when you're the only people there at night. But during the day, like it's still kind of creepy, but not like Combs Ferry.
Right. Yeah, Combs Ferry is like no other place, man. And it's like the land that time forgot. It looks post-apocalyptic in there. Because all those pictures I showed of the intact campsites in Joe Bald, it ain't like that in Combs Ferry. They're like just absolutely destroyed. And that one we found was the entire tabletop, which probably weighs at least 1,000 pounds, maybe even closer to a ton, had been uprooted off of a picnic table and was about 30 yards away, thrown into the middle of what was left of the trail.
Yeah, it's like a bomb went off in there.
Yeah, like it does. It looks like a wasteland.
It's like Dad said earlier. It looks post-apocalyptic in there.
Al Thompson says in the first book of Lakeview Man did in the Wild Hunt set up their fob at Joe Bald. Yes, they did. They sure did.
Also, one thing, I don't know when we're planning on closing out the show, but one thing that I want to bring up with everybody, all of the pictures and the videos, the
high-res versions
we've shown tonight, the high-res versions of everything, it will all be watermarked because we've had issues with people trying to steal our content in the past. It will all be uploaded on Patreon. So if you guys are sub to us on Patreon, you guys will be able to see those over there. If you're not, make sure to go over to the Patreon and get yourselves a look.
We'll be posting the high-res versions of the image, but there'll be a watermark on them.
But yeah, we'll have the full resolution versions,
the high watermark,
and the whole video. Yeah,
we'll also post the video into the members only section of the YouTube channel, so the members can watch that as well. And, for future expeditions, like I said, we're planning on going to Moon Valley and doing something similar to this. We're going to go back to Smiddle Cave and do this. And there are lots of places we haven't even gone yet. Big Bay, the campground, we're going to have to get into that by boat because it's locked off from land. We could probably park and hike in, but I'm going to have to build up my endurance a little bit before I'm willing to make that big of a trek because I'm still getting there. I mean, I'm a lot better than I was, but I need to drop some more weight and build up my endurance. And I'd be willing to hike in, but I think it would be much more expedient to go in by boat. Richard says, and he was out in the water looking in and still couldn't see very far in at all. Yeah, the Combs Ferry is so dense. It's just if you're more than 10 feet from the shore, you can't see the water.
Well, hell, in Combs Ferry, there's a few places where we would turn on our headlamps and the light would only make it 10 feet.
Yeah, because all the branches and debris
and you'd just be sitting there staring at darkness that's staring back at you, and you're like,
Eric from Edie from Bizarre and the Unknown says Big Bay is a hike to the camping area from the gate. I figured it probably is. It's probably going to be a lot easier to go in there by boat. I've also heard Big Bay has a lot of snakes, so going in there once it's cooled off, probably the best plan. But when I want to hit Big Bay, I want to go back to Combs Ferry. I definitely want to go and spend more time. We were there a few hours, but I want to go there and like go in at sunset and not come out till daylight, that kind of thing. And hopefully we can have everything set up where we can go live from inside those areas. We're still collecting equipment and trying to build our stuff, but yeah, I want to be able to go live from these locations. We're going to go back down to Smiddle Cave. I've got a much better appreciation of the area, and I know where the other caves are now. Eric says the boat is chock full of snakes. You mean Big Bay? Yeah, I've heard there's a lot of snakes up that way. But yeah, once it cools off, which it's been getting pretty chilly at night, so I would say we're going to see less and less snakes and bugs. But I definitely want to get into these places and either do what we did tonight, present all the images and the videos we took, or just go live from inside. So we're going to do some test runs on that to see what kind of signal we get. There's no way we could have gone live from Joe Bald today. I sent E.D. Testerman, I sent him a message from inside Joe Bald on Facebook Messenger, and it didn't transmit until we were miles from the park. Richard said, I will get you out to Bush Creek, but it's a boat access. Now, Richard, you and Wyatt know some places on Table Rock. Any of those places where you guys have had activity, I want to go there. I want to go there and film. I want to go there and investigate. So it looks like, this is a big hit with y'all. Look for more content like this. It's not just going to be us talking about, these creatures. It's going to be us out looking for them actively and to present any information we find. Mm-hmm. And between what we found in Combs Ferry and what we found today in Joe Bald, I am just absolutely astounded at the activity we're running into.
And we've talked about this before. Like we're all like firm believers in boots on ground research. Like there's no better way to prove that something's out there than by getting out there and finding it. So, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're not trying to kill one. We're not trying to be the first ones to bring in a body. We're trying to go to these areas where people have sightings, investigate it, and see if there's any merit.
There's some places on Stockton Lake I want to get to. There's some places up at Lake of the Ozarks I want to get to. There was a sighting just off of Lake of the Ozarks down by what they call Lake Niangua, which is right near where the Niangua River flows into Lake of the Ozarks. I want to go down and film in these places like at Ha Ha Tonka. And, there's a lot of places we can go where we can get into some pretty thick stuff where there's been sightings. And that's our plan, folks. I mean, we're trying to not only to be able to bring this kind of stuff to you, but we're also, trying to set ourselves apart because there's 1,000 channels that just talk about cryptids, but there aren't that many that actually take you to them.
The Ha Ha Tonka, that's where some of the apex predator took place, right?
Right. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to take you up to Ha Ha Tonka, but next time you're in, hopefully we can get you up there.
It's a bit of a hike too. Like,
well, it's a bit of a drive, but it's not too bad. I mean, it takes an hour and 45
you and Doc actually talked about an actual time frame, didn't we? Sometime after the first of the year.
Yeah.
So
Richard says there's a real good signal at Brush Creek, so you could go live there. Well, hopefully we can build the portable signal booster that we're wanting to build, and we'll be able to go live in much more remote places. But yeah, if there's good signal there, that's a good place to test it. Judy, we'll be careful. And my wife is, every time we talk about going somewhere, she's the first one to say, "You idiots better be careful."
No, usually she says, "I don't care what happens to you two idiots. You just make sure my baby comes home." That's usually what she says.
Yeah. Lyle McThompson says, "When you go to Stockton Lake, announce it. I'll tag along." Yeah. If you live up in that area, I wouldn't mind a local guide, but there's some places I want to hit. There's been quite a few tracks found up along the shore of Stockton Lake, and there's places that I really want to get in and film. Edie, it's a bizarrely unknown, says Big Bay is my old stomping ground until they closed it. I might still have kin in Shell Knob. Shell Knob is a really remote area, right there at in the Mark Twain National Forest. Driving that road to Shell Knob when you leave Kent with the head down toward Cape Fair and out toward Shell Knob, that is a remote, creepy drive even in the daylight. Facebook users is, how close is this to Richmond, Missouri? Nearest bigger city is Excelsior Springs. I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever been to Richmond, Missouri. I've been to Richland, but I've never been to Richmond.
Well, we got till after the first of the year to build our kit up.
Yeah.
And let's start trying to get everything built up. So what we need to do is make, like we've talked about since the last time I was down there, is making a list of the things we need and listing it on the Patreon. Yeah. And that way, if anybody wants to help, they'll see exactly what we need instead of say, "Hey, what do you need?" Well, make the list and put it on Patreon, and that way people can see.
Yeah. And again, folks, if you are a member of the Patreon, the high definition versions of those pictures that we showed tonight and the video will be up there, and the video will also be available for the channel members, so you can watch that as many times as you like. So just be looking for that in the next day or two. And again, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We had an amazing time. Don't forget 22 a Day Foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day, and that's 22 too many. So check on your first responder and veteran friends. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care, because that text or phone call that they get from you might be just what keeps them off the edge. So remember the 22 a Day Foundation. Remember the Till Valhalla Project, because they are really doing a lot of great work. And as we start wrapping this up, we're going to close her out with a toast. Old Irish drinking song called "The Parting Glass." And it doesn't matter what you're drinking. I've got bourbon and Coke. But it doesn't matter what you're drinking. And if you guys will lift a glass with us and join us in the toast. And the toast says like this: "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on Ex Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.